What would you do if the person you loved stopped trusting you? What would you do if he believed lies from his family more than your words? This is the story of my life. I want to share it with you because maybe you feel alone too. Maybe you are living in pain. If my story helps even one person, then sharing is worth it. My name is Sarah. I am 27 years old. I live in Manchester, in a small flat near the city. Today I want to tell you what happened when my husband listened to his sister instead of me. I hope you will stay with me until the end. I met Jason when I was 23 years old. He worked in an office. I worked in a small shop. He came to the shop one afternoon to buy a gift for his mother. We started talking. He was quiet, but his eyes were kind. He asked me if I wanted tea the next week. I said yes. We met in a cafe and talked for 3 hours. I felt happy and safe with him. If you enjoy listening to true emotional stories, please support me. Subscribe, share this video, and write a comment below. Tell me if you have ever felt the same. Your support helps me keep going. We started dating. He was not a man who spoke a lot, but when he did, I listened carefully. He always asked how my day was. He walked me home when it was late. I thought he was different from other men. After 1 year, he asked me to marry him. My answer was yes. Our wedding was small. We only invited close family and friends. I wore a white dress. He wore a dark suit. My heart was full of hope that day. I looked at him and thought, this is the man I will spend my life with. After the wedding, we moved into a small flat. It was not big, but I loved it. I cleaned it and bought flowers for the table. Every evening we made tea together. Sometimes we watched films. Sometimes we just talked. I felt safe in that flat. But soon his sister Emily came to stay with us. She said she would stay for 2 weeks, but she stayed for months. She was not kind to me. She made comments about my clothes. She said my food was not good. She asked Jason why he chose me. Every word hurt. I wanted Jason to tell her to stop, but he never did. He only said, "She is my sister, Sarah. Please understand." I stayed quiet, but inside I felt small. One morning I woke up and felt different. I was tired and sick. I bought a pregnancy test. When I saw the result, I cried. I was happy. I wanted a child. I wanted to be a mother. That evening I told Jason. He smiled a little, but he did not look very happy. He said, "Let's not tell anyone yet." I was surprised, but I agreed. 2 weeks later, everything broke. Jason came home late one evening. He sat down at the table. His face was cold. I asked, "Are you okay?" He said, "Emily told me something." My heart beat fast. He said, "She thinks the baby is not mine." I felt like I could not breathe. I said, "What? That is not true." He looked at me and said, "She saw you with another man last week." I remembered that day. It was raining. My coworker gave me a lift. He was only helping me. That was all. I told Jason the truth, but he did not believe me. He said, "You did not tell me everything." I said, "Jason, please. I would never lie to you. This baby is yours." But he did not listen. That night he slept on the couch. The next morning, he left early for work. He did not say goodbye. My hands shook as I made tea. I heard Emily in the kitchen later. She was speaking quietly with Jason. As she said, "She is hiding something. You must open your eyes." Jason did not answer, but I could see doubt in his face. Days passed. Jason was not the same. He spoke less. He looked at me with suspicion. I cried at night when he could not see me. I wanted him to hold me, but he turned away. One evening he came home early. He stood by the door with a bag in his hand. He said, "I need time. I will stay with Mum for a while." My eyes filled with tears. "Please don't go," I said. "I need you. The baby needs you." He shook his head and walked out. I fell to the floor and cried until I was tired. After he left, I tried to call my mother. She lived far away in another country. When I told her what happened, she said, "You are strong. You will survive this. You are not alone. You have your baby." Her words gave me a little strength, but I still felt very sad. I went to the doctor for my checkups alone. I sat in the waiting room with other women who had partners next to them. I wanted Jason to be with me, but he was not. I looked at the small baby picture on the screen, and I cried quietly. One evening when I came home from the doctor, Emily was gone. She had packed her things and left. I felt some relief, but I was still alone in the flat. That night I spoke softly to my baby. I said, "I will take care of you, even if it is only us. I will protect you." I had little money. I could not depend on Jason. I had to do something. I started making small baby gift baskets with toys and ribbons. I made one for myself. My neighbor Mrs. Brown saw it and asked if she could buy one for her niece. She gave me 10 pounds. I was so grateful. I felt like I had a small start. I made more baskets and took pictures with my phone. I shared them online. Slowly, people started to order. Each basket gave me a little hope. I was doing something. I was not waiting anymore. Mrs. Brown helped me often. She came on weekends and tied ribbons with me. She brought fruit and sometimes made soup. She never asked too many questions. She just stayed near me. One day she said, "You are stronger than you think, Sarah. He left you, but you are still here. You are building a life." I smiled and felt a small light in my heart. One evening, when the sun was low, my phone rang. I looked at the screen. It was Jason. My hands shook. I answered. His voice was quiet. He said, "I know the truth now. Emily lied. She wanted to hurt you. I am sorry. I want to come back." I listened but did not speak for a long time. Then I said, "You did not believe me. You left me when I needed you. I am not the same woman now." I ended the call. I did not cry. I felt calm. I looked down at my stomach and touched it softly. I said to my baby, "The only love I need is yours." That night I slept in peace for the first time in many weeks. After that night, I knew my life had changed. Jason was gone, but I was still here. I had my baby, and I had a small start with my gift baskets. I told myself each day, I must stay strong. I must try. Some days I cried in the morning, but then I stood up and worked. The baby inside me gave me strength. When I felt a small kick, I smiled. I said, "You are my reason now." I spoke to my baby often. I said good morning, good night, and sometimes I told small stories. My flat was quiet, but when I spoke to the baby, I felt less alone. Orders for the baskets grew slowly. One person told another. Soon I had 3 orders in a week. I packed them with ribbons and small toys. I wrote thank you on a card and placed it inside. People liked my work. They told me, "Your baskets make people smile." That gave me hope. Mrs. Brown was always near. She was more than a neighbor now. She was like family. She came over with fruit, or sometimes she brought tea. She said, "I don't want you to feel alone." I looked at her and said, "Thank you. I do not know what I would do without you." One afternoon, I walked to the shop to buy milk. I moved slowly because my stomach was big now. On the way home, a woman stopped me. She said, "Are you the one who makes the baskets?" My friend showed me. I said yes. She asked me to make one for her sister. I agreed. That was the first time a stranger asked me directly. My heart felt warm. But even with small happiness, some nights were hard. I lay in bed and thought about Jason. I thought about how he looked at me with doubt in his eyes. That look hurt more than words. I remembered the way he walked out with his bag. My tears wet the pillow, but I wiped them away. I said to myself, no more begging, no more waiting. I will not cry for him again. Months passed. My stomach grew bigger. People on the street smiled at me. Some said, "Congratulations." I smiled back, but inside I still felt heavy. I wanted to believe the world was kind, but Jason's words still lived in my mind. One day Mrs. Brown said, "Come with me to the community center. They are having a small market. You can sell your baskets there." I was nervous. I said, "What if no one buys?" She smiled and said, "At least people will see your work." So we went. I placed 10 baskets on a small table. I stood there and waited. At first, no one came. Then one woman stopped. She picked up a basket and smiled. She said, "This is lovely. I will take it." Soon another person came. By the end of the day, I sold 7 baskets. I could not believe it. I hugged Mrs. Brown and said, "You were right. People do like my work." From that day, I worked harder. I made new designs. I added small clothes for babies, small bottles, and soft toys. I spent hours in my flat, working and smiling. Each basket was not just a product. It was a piece of my heart. But life was not easy. Sometimes I felt tired. My back hurt. My legs hurt. I wanted Jason to be there, to carry things, to make tea. But he was not there. And each time I remembered that, I felt stronger, because I was doing it alone. Then one evening, the pain started. It was sharp and heavy. I knew the baby was coming. I called an ambulance. They took me to the hospital. I was scared. I wanted to hold someone's hand, but there was no one. I closed my eyes and whispered, "Please be safe, my baby." Hours later, I heard a cry. a small, strong cry. They placed a baby girl in my arms. She was tiny, soft, and perfect. Her fingers wrapped around mine. I cried, but this time the tears were of joy. I said, "Hello, my love. You are my light." I named her Sophie. She was my reason to live. Every night I looked at her face and felt peace. I kissed her forehead and said, "We will be okay. I promise." Mrs. Brown came to visit us. She brought flowers and clothes. She looked at Sophie and said, "She is beautiful, just like her mother." My heart was full. I worked less for some weeks, but slowly I started again. I made baskets when Sophie slept. I rocked her in one arm and worked with the other. It was hard, but I smiled, because now I had someone to fight for. One evening, my phone rang. I looked at the screen. It was Jason again. My heart raced. I picked up. His voice was quiet. He said, "I heard about the baby. I want to see her." My hands shook. I said, "You left us. You doubted me. Why now?" He said, "I made a mistake. Please let me see my daughter." I stayed silent for a while. Then I said, "I will not stop you from seeing her, but you cannot come back into my life like before. You lost that chance." When he came, he looked nervous. He sat on the chair and looked at Sophie. His eyes filled with tears. He whispered, "She looks like me." I stood near and watched. My heart was calm. I was not angry anymore. I only felt distance. After he left, I sat with Sophie in my arms. I kissed her small hand and whispered, "He is only a visitor now. You and we are the family." From that day, I did not think much about Jason. I thought only about Sophie and the small business I was building. Each basket I sold gave me money to buy food and clothes. Each smile from a customer gave me courage. At night, when Sophie slept, I sometimes spoke to her softly. I said, "One day, you will know what happened. One day, you will know that your mother fought for you. You will know that I chose you, even when others walked away." The pain of the past was still in my heart, but it was softer now. Sophie's small hands healed me a little each day. And Mrs. Brown's kindness showed me that family is not only blood. Family is who stays with you when you are broken. That is how I lived in those first months. Alone, but also not alone. Broken, but also stronger. I was not the same woman who begged Jason to stay. I was Sarah, a mother, and I had a reason to keep going. Life with Sophie was not easy, but it was full of love. She woke up many times at night. Sometimes she cried for hours. I was tired, but I looked at her small face and felt strong again. Each day I made food, cleaned, and worked on my baskets while taking care of her. My life was not simple anymore, but it was real, and it was mine. People in the neighborhood started to know me. They said, "You are the woman who makes baskets, right?" I said yes and smiled. Some people ordered, some people only said kind words. Each small word of support made me feel part of the community. I was not invisible anymore. Mrs. Brown came often. She brought food when I was too tired to cook. She held Sophie so I could rest for 1 hour. Sometimes we just sat in silence. She told me, "You are doing very well, Sarah. You are a good mother." I cried when I heard that, because deep inside I always asked myself if I was enough. As Sophie grew, my love grew too. She smiled for the first time when she was 2 months old. That smile felt like sunlight after a long, dark night. I said, "You are my gift. You are the best thing in my life." I kissed her cheeks and laughed. But life also brought new challenges. Money was still a problem. Sometimes I had only enough for rent and food. I could not buy new clothes for myself. I wore the same old shoes every day. I did not care much, but sometimes I looked in the mirror and thought, I look tired. I look old. Then I looked at Sophie and said, "You are my reason. That is enough." One evening, Jason called again. I hesitated but answered. He said, "I want to help you. I want to give money for the baby." I thought for a long moment. Then I said, "If you want to help, you can. But do not think this means we are together again. I do not trust you anymore." He was quiet for a few seconds. Then he said, "I understand." He started sending some money each month. It was not much, but it helped. I used it only for Sophie's needs. I never spent it on myself. Each time the money came, I told myself, "This is for her, not for me." He left me, but he must still be a father. Months passed. My small business grew slowly. I joined more markets at the community center. I met other women who also sold things. Some made candles, some made clothes. We talked and laughed together. For the first time since Jason left, I felt I had friends again. One of the women, Claire, said, "You should open a small page online. More people can see your baskets." I was nervous. I said, "What if no one buys?" She smiled and said, "At least people will know you are here." So I tried. I made a simple page with pictures. To my surprise, orders came from outside my town too. I worked late at night while Sophie slept, but I felt proud. One Sunday, Jason came to visit Sophie. He held her and looked at me. He said, "I miss our life. I want to try again." I looked at him calmly. I said, "You had your chance. You left me when I needed you most. I cannot go back. I do not hate you, but I will not be your wife again." His eyes looked sad, but I did not change my words. I was not angry. I was not crying. I was only strong. After he left, I sat on the sofa with Sophie. I whispered, "I did it. I spoke my truth. I am free." My heart felt light. That night I slept well. Years passed. Sophie grew. She learned to walk, then to speak. She called me Mama in a sweet small voice. Each time I heard it, I smiled. She was my joy. She was the reason I kept moving forward. My baskets business also grew. I sold more and more. I saved money slowly. One day I told Mrs. Brown, "I want to move to a bigger place. Sophie needs space to play." She hugged me and said, "You can do it." After some months, I had enough for a deposit on a new flat. It was not very big, but it had 2 rooms. Sophie had her own small room. I painted the walls light pink and put toys on a shelf. When she saw it, she laughed and clapped her hands. My heart was full. One evening I sat by the window with a cup of tea. Sophie was asleep in her new room. I thought about the past. I thought about the night Jason told me the baby was not his. I thought about the day he walked out. I remembered the silence in the flat. I remembered my tears. But then I thought about now. I had a daughter. I had work. I had hope. I was not broken anymore. I said to myself, I lost a husband, but I found myself. I found my strength. Sometimes Jason still came to see Sophie. He was kind to her, and I was glad for that. But for me, he was only a visitor. I never looked at him with love again. He was a part of my past, not my future. Mrs. Brown grew older, but she was still near. She came every week, even if just for tea. She said, "You are like my daughter now." I held her hand and said, "And you are like my mother." That bond gave me comfort. Now when I tell my story, I do not feel only pain. I also feel pride. I survived. I worked. I raised my daughter. I built a new life. If you are listening now and you feel broken, I want to tell you something. Do not give up. Even if people leave you, you can stand. Even if family doubts you, you can still grow. Pain is heavy, but hope can be stronger. I believed my life was over when Jason left me, but it was not over. It was only a new beginning. And today, when I look at Sophie's smile, I know that leaving the past behind was the best choice I ever made. What if the person you trusted most left you without warning? What if you were left with a child who asked questions you could not answer? This is my life. It is not easy to tell, but I want to share it. When I was young, I dreamed of a simple life. I dreamed of love, a small home, and children. One day, I met a man who made me feel safe. He was not loud, and he was not full of words. He was quiet, but he was kind to me. I believed he was the one who would stay with me forever. I trusted him. I gave him my heart. Before I go deeper into my story, please support me so I can share more stories like this. If you feel touched by my words, please subscribe, share, and leave a comment below. It helps me, and it means a lot. Let's continue. We soon became a family. When our daughter was born, my life felt complete. I called her Emily. She was small and soft, and her eyes were bright. I held her in my arms and felt the world change. My husband stood by my side. He looked down at her and gave a small smile. I thought he was happy. I thought he was proud. I believed we had everything we needed. Emily grew fast. She filled our days with noise, laughter, and play. She asked me many questions. She wanted to know about the sky, the birds, the rain. She followed me everywhere and held my hand. She was my joy. My husband watched her. He did not play much, and he did not speak much, but I told myself that was just his way. Not all fathers were playful. I believed he loved her in silence. Then life broke apart. One evening, I waited for him to come home. The clock moved, but he did not walk through the door. The phone rang, and my life changed. A voice told me that my husband was gone. Just like that. No warning. No goodbye. My body froze. My mind could not understand. I wanted to scream, but I could not. Emily was only 6 years old. She looked at me with wide eyes. She asked me where her father was. I held her tight and said nothing. My heart was broken. The days after his death were hard. I woke up in the morning and the house was too quiet. His chair was empty. His shoes stayed by the door. His clothes still smelled like him. At night I cried when Emily was asleep. She asked for him every day. She wanted him to kiss her goodnight. She wanted him to walk with her to school. I told her he was in heaven now, watching over us. She looked at the sky and asked if he could see her. I said yes, even though my own heart was full of fear. Time moved slowly. A year passed. I did my best for Emily. She wanted to play in the garden. She wanted to paint and read small books. She smiled and sang. She gave me strength when I felt weak. But I still missed him. I missed his quiet smile. I missed the way he sat beside me. I missed the family I thought we had. The pain never left me. One afternoon, I was cleaning. Opened a drawer that I had not touched for a long time. At the back there was a folder. It was full of papers. At first, I thought they were old bills. But when I looked closer, I saw his name on the front. My hand shook. The words on the first page made my breath stop. It said, "Psychiatric Hospital." I could not believe it. My husband had been treated for depression. He had never told me. My heart felt heavy. I sat down on the floor with the folder in my hands. I wanted to close it. I wanted to put it away. But I could not stop thinking. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Why had he never told me? Why had I not seen the pain? Did I fail him? Should I have helped him? The questions would not stop. I felt tears on my face. My daughter slept beside me, safe and warm, and I wondered how much I did not know about the man I married. The next day, I opened the folder again. My hands shook as I turned the pages. The papers spoke of his sadness. They spoke of dark thoughts. He had sat with a therapist. He had told the therapist about his life, his fears, his doubts. Reading it made me feel like I was sitting in the room with them. I wanted to stop, but I kept reading. I wanted to know everything. I thought the pain of his death was enough. But I was wrong. There was more pain waiting. Then I saw something that cut deeper than anything else. The therapist had written notes about their talks. In every note, my husband did not say our daughter's name. He did not say Emily. He only said, "the child." Over and over, the words were the same. The child. My eyes blurred with tears. I read the words again, but they did not change. My husband had never spoken her name to his therapist. Not once. Just the child. I closed the folder, but the words stayed with me. I sat in silence for a long time. Why? Why would he not say her name? Did he not feel close to her? Did he not love her the way I thought he did? The man I married, the man I trusted, was now a stranger in some way. I wanted to believe he loved her, but the notes told me something else. My chest hurt with fear. I felt like I had lost him all over again. That night, I went to Emily's room. She was asleep, her small hand resting near her face. I sat beside her bed. I touched her hair and whispered her name. Emily, Emily. Emily. I said it again and again, as if to make up for the silence in her father's notes. She did not wake, but I wanted her to hear her name even in her dreams. I wanted her to feel loved, fully and deeply, with no doubt. I could not sleep that night. I thought about the man I had married. I thought about the father he was. He had been kind in his way. He had provided a home. But now I saw a secret side. He had carried sadness that I never knew. He had spoken to someone else about his pain, but not to me. He had called our daughter the child instead of her name. And in one line from the notes, he had told the therapist that he would not mind if I left him and took full custody of her. Reading that made me feel like the ground moved under me. He had thought about life without us. He had been ready for me to leave. I did not know him as I thought I did. I sat by the window until the sky grew light. Emily woke and ran to me, asking for breakfast. I smiled at her, even though my heart was heavy. She was full of life. She was innocent. She did not need to know what I had read. I told myself I would keep this secret forever. After I found the folder, I could not forget it. The papers stayed in the drawer, but they also stayed in my mind. Every day when I looked at Emily, I thought of those words. The child. It hurt me deeply. It made me wonder about the man I had married. It made me wonder what kind of father he really was. I tried to tell myself to stop thinking about it. I told myself that the past was gone, and he was gone too. But I could not escape it. When Emily laughed, I thought of him never saying her name. When she asked me to play, I thought of him sitting in silence. I tried to smile for her, but inside I felt broken. Sometimes I remembered the good times. He held me on cold nights. He walked with me through the park. He kissed me softly when Emily was born. These memories were warm, and I wanted to hold them close. But then the folder returned to me. His secret life, his hospital stay, his words to the therapist. I lived between two pictures of him. One picture was the man I loved. The other picture was a man who carried sadness, who thought about leaving, who did not say his daughter's name. The nights were the worst. After Emily went to sleep, the silence grew heavy. I sat by the window and stared at the sky. I thought of him in the hospital room. I thought of him talking to the therapist. I imagined his face as he spoke. Was he crying? Was he cold? Did he feel alone even when we were beside him? My heart hurt for him, but it also hurt for me. He had left me in the dark. One evening, I opened the folder again. I read the same lines many times. In one note, the therapist wrote that he would not mind if I left him. He said it would be better if I took Emily with me. He said I could raise her alone. Reading this broke me. Did he not want us? Did he not believe in our family? Did he feel no love for the child we made together? I wanted to scream, but there was no one to hear me. I wanted to ask him why, but he was gone. The papers gave me words, but they gave me no answers. I was left with more questions than before. The days with Emily went on. She was growing. She started to read small books by herself. She drew pictures and showed them to me with pride. She smiled when I clapped for her. She asked me about her father less often now. Sometimes she looked at his picture and stayed quiet. I kissed her and told her he loved her. But I did not know if that was true anymore. I never told her about the folder. She was too young. She needed love, not pain. I kept it hidden in the drawer, but I carried the weight alone. Every time I saw her bright face, I felt two things at once. I felt love for her, and I felt fear from the words in those notes. I tried to talk to myself. Maybe he had loved her but could not say it. Maybe he had been too sick to use her name. Maybe the child was just his way of speaking in the hospital. I tried to believe these things, but the doubts stayed. They whispered to me in the night. One afternoon, I went for a walk with Emily. She held my hand and asked me about the trees, the sky, the flowers by the road. Her voice was so full of life. I smiled at her and answered. But deep inside, I thought, why did he not say her name? Why did he only say the child? I hated that the thought came again. I hated that the secret stole my peace. Years passed slowly. Emily grew older. She learned to ride a bike. She made friends at school. She started to write little stories. She laughed often, and she filled the house with her joy. But I still thought of the folder. I could not throw it away. I could not burn it. It stayed in the drawer, heavy and hidden. Sometimes I took it out and read it again. My hands shook each time, but I still read. I wanted to understand. I wanted to know the man I had lived with. But the more I read, the less I understood. He had loved me in some way, but he had also been ready to lose me. He had lived with me, but he had hidden his pain. He had smiled at our daughter, but he had never spoken her name in that room. The truth was too heavy to hold, but I could not let it go. I never told anyone. Not my family. Not my friends. Not Emily. It became my secret. It became the shadow that followed me everywhere. When people said he had been a good man, I smiled and stayed silent. When they said Emily looked like him, I said yes, but inside I wondered if he would have cared. The years after his death felt like living in two worlds. In one world, I was a mother, giving love and care to my daughter. In the other world, I was a woman carrying a truth I could not share. These two worlds lived inside me, and they never met. Sometimes I wanted to speak to Emily about her father. I wanted to tell her the good things, the warm things. But the folder always stopped me. It whispered in my ear. He did not say her name. And I stayed quiet. I told her simple stories instead, and I kept the truth locked away. One night, when Emily was about 10, she asked me if her father had loved her. Her eyes were serious, and her voice was soft. My heart broke. I wanted to cry. I wanted to tell her the truth and set my heart free. But I looked into her eyes and said, "Yes, he loved you." She smiled and hugged me, and I carried the secret deeper inside me. I knew then that I could never tell her. I would keep it hidden forever. She did not need to know. She did not need the pain. I would carry it alone, no matter how heavy it became. 10 years passed. Time moved, but the memory of the folder never left me. Emily grew older. She was no longer the small girl who asked about her father every day. She became a young woman with her own voice, her own dreams, and her own way of seeing the world. When she turned 16, she laughed louder than ever. She had friends who filled our home with noise and stories. She sat at the table, speaking fast about school, about books, about music she liked. I watched her with pride. She was bright. She was alive. She had a future that was open before her. But inside me, the secret still lived. The folder stayed hidden in the same drawer. I never touched it, but I always knew it was there. Sometimes, in the quiet of night, I thought about it. I thought about those words. The child. I thought about the man I had loved and the truth I had learned. It was heavy, and it would always be heavy. Emily asked less about her father as she grew. Sometimes she looked at his photo. Sometimes she asked me to tell her what he was like. I told her safe things. I told her he was quiet, kind, and gentle. I told her he worked hard. I told her he smiled at her when she was a baby. These words were true, but they were not the whole truth. I never told her about the folder. One evening, Emily sat with me on the porch. The sun was going down. The sky was full of colors, orange, pink, and soft purple. She looked at me and said, "Mom, do you miss him still?" I felt a lump in my throat. I said yes. I did miss him. That was true, but I did not tell her what else I carried. Another time when she was 17, she asked me, "Did he love me?" My hands shook for a moment. I looked at her face. She was almost grown, but her eyes still held the same light from when she was a child. I smiled and said, "Yes, he loved you very much." She smiled back and hugged me. I held her tight, and in that hug, I knew I had chosen the only path I could. The truth was not for her. The truth was for me alone. It was my burden, not hers. She needed to believe she was loved. She needed to feel safe in her father's memory. I could not take that from her. The years went on. Emily finished school. She made plans for her future. She wanted to travel, to study, to see the world. She was brave and full of hope. I was proud of her. I was glad she carried no shadow in her heart. The shadow was mine, and I would keep it that way. At times, when I was alone, I opened the drawer and looked at the folder. I touched it with my hand, but I did not read it again. I already knew every word by heart. I already knew the pain it carried. I thought about burning it, but I could not. It was part of him. It was part of me. It was part of the life we had lived, even if it was hidden. I often wondered why he never said her name. I wondered if it was the sickness. I wondered if it was fear. I wondered if deep inside he loved her but could not show it. I will never know the answer. The folder gave me words, but it did not give me peace. Still, I chose to protect Emily. That was my promise to myself. She would never know. She would never read those lines. She would never carry that doubt. Her memory of her father would stay soft, warm, and safe. I carried the pain so she would not have to. Now, 10 years later, I sometimes sit by the window and watch her walk out the door, ready for the life ahead. She is strong. She is kind. She is full of light. She carries none of the weight I carry, and that is enough for me. I will never tell her. I will never let her see the folder. She will not know the truth that broke me. She will not know the words "the child." she will only know the story of a father who loved her in silence. That is the story I gave her, and that is the story she will keep. Love is not always about telling everything. Love is sometimes about protecting. Love is sometimes about carrying pain alone so another heart can stay free. That is the choice I made, and that is the choice I will live with until my last day. This is my story. It began with love. It passed through loss, and it ended with a secret I could not share. Some truths are too heavy for the young. Some truths are better left in the dark. I chose silence because my daughter's happiness was worth more than my need to speak. Thank you for listening to my story. If you felt my pain, please support me. Subscribe, share, and comment below. Your words give me strength, and they help me keep telling stories like this.